Hey everybody, welcome to Texas Z Chat. I'm Serge.
I'm Rob.
I'm Gen Z.
I'm Gen X.
And today we are covering some current events. There has been recently this story that has been going around everywhere regarding the Titan Submersible, which was, of course, a very tragic incident that recently happened. Rob, I briefly asked Rob if he knew anything about this, and he said he heard some like general stuff, but he actually isn't very much aware. So first, I like to understand to get your understanding of what you know of the event so far, and then I'm gonna help fill in because I have some articles and some videos pulled up that kind of help explain the story of like what happened, what occurred, and what were some of the factors that led up to this incident. So first, I'd like to just kind of get your understanding of all the details.
So I heard that. Well, first of all, let me preface this with, I've been on a business trip, so I've been pretty tied up on a number of things. So I have not kept up on current events. I understand that this is a pretty big story, and it's about a private submarine that took tourists down to see the remains of the Titanic in the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. And so I'm not sure what happened. I think they're stuck down there, last I heard. And the Navy's hearing pingings, noises, I suppose, of the tourists that are trapped down there.
Assuming you mean that there's like every 30 minutes there was a banging sound, which the Coastal Guard assumed was a sign of them being still alive down there trapped, right?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even hear that much detail other than they were just hearing some pinging sounds. So the thought was this is good news because people are alive, but I don't know too much more about this.
Okay, yeah. So you are a little behind on the story. I'll catch you up. I'll
fill me in.
I'll help fill in. And if this is your first time hearing this as well, I'll help also guide you guys through what's happened. I think first I'd like to show you this one video, which is it's kind of like a little advertisement, I think, that was put together by the CEO of the submersible. Basically advertising this trip that the video is called "The Submersible Takes Passengers to the Titanic Wreck, Climb In." So it's basically saying, hey, this is a trip that you might want to go on. It's kind of like an advertisement. And the CEO, his name is Stockton Rush, and he's the one who's advertising it here.
And the submersible is the name of the submarine?
No. The name of the submarine is Titan. Obviously, you can guess that the name is inspired by the Titanic. And by the way, the reason it's called submersible is this isn't a submarine. A submarine and submersible are two different things. A submarine is kind of more fully fleshed out. It can move on its own. It's a much different thing. A submersible is something that just it gets kind of put down in the water. It's much more primitive in a sense. In fact, it can't go out there into the ocean to get to its destination. They have to basically have it on a platform that gets driven out to the ocean. And then once it's in position, then they drop it downwards. Okay. So it's a little bit different. Just to kind of explain the terminology. So first, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to ask you if this is something that you would have been interested in going on in this type of trip. So,
okay.
All right.
We are inside the submersible Titan, which is a carbon fiber and titanium sub that can go to the depths of the Titanic. Hi, my name is Stockton Rush. I'm the CEO and founder of Oceangate. Let's take a look at Titan.
And this is the CEO.
So we're coming into the sub. This is the only toilet available on a deep diving submersible. Best seat in the house. You can look out the viewport. We put a privacy screen in, turn up the music, and it's very popular. We have our control screen here, our sonar screen here, and we can put any image we want in the back. We've taken a completely new approach to the sub design, and it's all run with this game controller and these touch screens. So if you want to go forward, you press forward.
Sus.
If you want to go back, turn back, turn left, turn right.
Yeah, feel free to pause at any time to share your thoughts.
Okay.
So, first impressions, Rob. This is the submersible.
So my first impression is I would think this is like a prototype, but not the actual submersible.
Right. Yeah.
It looks very primitive. There's really nothing inside of it but just a hollow tube.
Yep.
And to to say that they want, what did he term it? They wanted to keep things simple or something, and use a game controller to control this submersible, where you're going below the depth.
And it looks like it's an older model game controller as well. I'm not too familiar with it, but
the newer ones don't have those joysticks.
It looks like it's like a $20 one you can get down at like your local GameStop or somewhere.
This just looks crazy.
Yeah, it looks very crummy. And actually, one of the other videos I'm going to show you, he actually kind of boasts about kind of just grabbing parts from like local stores, like from like basically finding like cheap solutions to this kind of like cutting corners in a sense, to putting this together on a budget, kind of like bragging about like being able to do that, to accomplish that. Like, look at what a great inventor I am from being able to. And I don't know about you, but personally, if I'm going on this type of trip, I would want it to be like the most highest quality of parts from like the most expensive companies.
Absolutely. I think the Titanic remains are about 2 miles below the surface of the water.
Yeah, I think like 4,000 meters down, right?
Yeah, that's about right from what I understand. And so with that, you think about the pressure that's down there. I'd want a fully tested, tried and true, highly technological submersible to be in. So far, I'm not impressed at all.
And something that really struck me is what you said. It seems kind of crummy. You see like the monitors are just kind of sitting there, and the keyboard is just like resting on the floor. It doesn't look like a high-tech submarine or submersible in this case. It feels very improvised, which is what it was.
It looks like a prototype. You know, let's begin to build something from this idea, this design, and then start from here. This does not look like the end product. And also, shall we assume that he tried to make it more affordable for people, and that's why he cut corners?
Oh,
probably not.
Speaking of which, what do you think the cost is to go on this ride? Keep in mind, this submersible, it's for 5 passengers. Okay. So 5 passengers would fit into this little tube.
It doesn't look bigger than it would. 5 max. The cost.
To go on a trip.
It's probably a 2-hour tour, I'm guessing.
I think it takes that amount of time just to go down, maybe even longer. So it takes longer than that.
Okay.
But I'm not talking about costs. I mean, time. I'm talking about like cost. How much do you think it would cost you?
Yeah, I'm thinking, time is money. I'm going to guess this guy's ripping people off and charging them $25,000 a ticket. Maybe a little bit more. I know, that's a lot of money.
25,000?
25,000, maybe a little bit more.
Multiply that by 10.
What?
I'm not joking.
$250,000?
$250,000 per passenger. That is the cost.
$250,000 per person.
Yep.
Not per. Wow.
Yeah. And that just adds to even more. I would want, if I'm paying $250,000, I would want this submersible to be the most high tech thing in existence.
Absolutely.
I want it to be fancier than a rocket ship that's going into space.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's continue. I'm more intrigued now.
Go down, go up. And it's Bluetooth, so I can hand it to anybody. And it's meant for a 16-year-old to throw it around, and super durable. We keep a couple of spares on board just in case. This is the second year we've been out to the Titanic. We went out in 5 8-day missions. We did about 10 dives to the wreck site of the Titanic, and we did an extra dive on an undiscovered reef that we found. Completely private.
It looks like there's too much exposure with the wires as well.
I don't.
Is that normal?
I'm guessing they have parts that cover this up.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Privately funded operation, and we're funded by we call mission specialists who help support the mission. So they take quite a bit of money to come and join us. Years ago, the Russians took tourists out to the Titanic, and it was just sort of a look and see thing. We really are focusing on the science around it. We want to document what the wreck is like now, and also try to predict what it'll be like in the future. It's continuing to decay, and it seems to be accelerating. It's being eaten by a bacteria, so it's literally being eaten by the ocean. It's not rusting away. So these
and that is true what he's saying. There's actually some predictions that it shows like decades. There's like images that predict like computer generated images that show that the Titanic is going to erode over time, and at one point it will just be completely dissolved.
Just like sort of ocean floor dust,
right?
Mud,
yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Things that are called rusticles are actually the byproduct of a bacteria that eats the iron. And as it does that, these decks are collapsing. The promenade deck continues to collapse forward. We saw some of the railing is starting to lose its structural strength, which is really a sad thing. That's when it's going to stop looking like the Titanic.
Yeah, and it's a shame because it's such a piece of history, right?
Mm-hmm.
The interest in the Titanic is the reason we go there, because people are willing to fund this kind of exploration and science, and that gives a completely different research component that almost nowhere else in the deep ocean can you get funding to go back every year for decades and see how coral reefs develop and see how metals decay and see how currents change. I mean, that just, you can't justify that. No government will pay for that. Nobody wants to go back to just some old...
But this guy here is charging $250,000 for 5 people. So he's putting in 1.25 mil each dive. That's a lot of money.
I think on these dives, one of the people on board is himself.
Okay, so mil.
So yeah.
Gross revenue. Okay, interesting.
Old reef, but people do want to go back to the Titanic.
Which, by the way, the submersible, the story that recently with it going missing, right? One of the 5 passengers on board is him, actually, the CEO himself.
Oh, in this current... okay, so you just said missing, so it's missing. They currently haven't found it. So the
well,
sounds...
I actually do have an update on it, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
But basically, he is one of the passengers on board in this recent incident.
Okay.
Yep.
That's why we go, is because people want to go.
So
that's a commercial.
Yep.
To let people know, either investors or potential passengers.
Right. It's kind of like an awareness thing. So like maybe some functioning somewhat as an advertisement, basically saying this is an opportunity for people to go and see it before it's gone, right? Before it's dissolved. So impressions, would you go on this? Well, I think I know your answer already.
Okay. I would have to say absolutely not for 2 reasons. First, it looks unsafe. I was going to say dilapidated. It doesn't look dilapidated, but it just does not look like it's dive worthy, okay, especially at that depth. Secondly, even if I had the money, I wouldn't spend $250,000 to take this tour ride.
Right.
Even if I was filthy rich. I'm interested in the Titanic. It's fascinating. I've seen many documentaries on it. I've read a little bit about it. Of course, I saw the the Cameron movie. What's the producer's first name? Anyway, Cameron's Titanic in '98. Great movie. Enjoyed it. I like it. It's intriguing. It's fascinating. But I would not spend money and go on this trip. And the money's one part of it, and
the safety.
The submersible is the biggest part of it. There's no way.
Yeah. It's definitely not very. Does not alleviate the fears of what could happen. Yeah. Now, to make matters worse, there's actually for some time there has been some issues with this. I wrote down here that there's actually a safety lawsuit in 2018 regarding concerns about the safety of the submersible
with this company.
Yeah. And it's not
so they've been around for a few years.
Yeah, and it's not certified at all.
Cannot be.
I think it's one of the only submersibles in the world that is not certified, and they claim that they're not gonna go for the certification. I think I forgot the exact wording, but they weren't even gonna go for it because they don't need to, because they don't want to be they want to stifle innovation. But what's interesting is actually they actually did apply to be certified at some point. They're denied, and so then later they made it sound like we're not planning on doing it. Well, the reason you're not doing it is because you weren't allowed to do it.
So what a spin on it. Yeah. They basically could not pass the certification regulations, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so the spin on it was, you're getting in the way of our innovation, so we're not going to pursue cert. Wow.
Yeah, and here's another red flag is that the CEO, which I just showed you the video of, he actually complained that the industry is overly safe. Like it's the regulations are obscenely safe, and that they're holding back inventors from advancing society, right?
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So if you go up 2 frames, okay, well, this one, let's pause for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a visual here of someone looking out the window. It looks like there's only one window. So
Only
again,
one window.
If I'm going to pay $250,000, I'm going to want my own windows as well.
Yeah,
and not take turns.
There's only one window. It's out here.
And you're sitting on the john when you're looking out the window.
Yep. And basically the operator is actually facing the back. There's a screen in the back, which you saw in the video. And all the 4 passengers are looking out this little porthole window. Yeah. Now there are some minor concerns with the design, mainly that it's built in an unconventional way, which I'm going to show you a quick little video clip. And he's kind of boasting about doing things that other inventors say you can't. So basically, he's breaking new grounds
under the guise of innovation. All right, let's see.
All right, here we go. So Stockton Rush appears to boast about bending rules in construction of Titanic tourist sub.
Okay, I want to hold judgment, but I'm thinking thoughts already in my head. Like, anyway, I'll refrain. I'll find out more information here.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did. I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
So it's kind of alarming when someone says that there's an established convention that you don't engineer something in a certain way, and then you go against it, and
he's boasting about it,
right? And you call that groundbreaking. There's also some other concerns with it, namely one of the design flaws. For example, there's no safety hatch. So how it works is this outside port. You see this rounded part on the submersible itself right here. It's swung open, and the passengers get into this cylinder tube, and then it's bolted shut with 17 bolts on the outside.
Wait a minute. Did you just say the outside?
Yeah.
17 bolts from the outside. Yeah. Therefore, you're trapped inside.
Exactly.
You can only get out if someone from the outside unbolts these 17 bolts.
Yeah, and there's a very vague...
So there's no, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's no safety latch to open the door if need be.
There's no way for anyone inside to get themselves out on their own.
Wow. I can't imagine that being admissible.
Right.
In any regulation.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I'm all for innovation, and I'm all for bending the rules. But let me explain what I mean by that. Bending the rules, but never at the cost of safety. Mm-hmm. Bending the rules as far as thinking outside the box. Bending the rules as far as looking at conventions and seeing how they could be expanded or pushed out. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean by bending the rules. And that really is innovation. But again, innovation not at all at the cost of safety.
Exactly.
This is nuts. It looks like nuts. So go ahead.
Yeah. And it's basically...
This is crazy. I mean, who is this guy here?
You
I'm sorry. I just keep more and more think about it. In the industry I'm in, it's such a big deal with safety.
It is because it's always safety first. You always want to. There are certain rules you can break, but safety regulations are put in place, and they are obscenely safe to prevent any outcome in which lives are lost.
Right.
It is very important,
as they should be.
Yeah, and so there are rules that you can break, but I'm sure that taking inspiration from a figure who operated in a completely different field is not the way you want to go. It's one thing to break the rules and use unconventional warfare tactics on the battlefield. It is a whole nother thing to ignore safety regulations that are put in place to keep people safe. Now, Rob, I didn't even get to the more alarming parts. So
Oh, wait, there's more?
There's more.
Well, after you mentioned about being bolted in from the outside by
Yeah.
17 different bolts, and people from the inside cannot get out unless someone from the outside lets them out,
Yep.
you're saying there's even more.
There's even more.
It's worse. It gets worse.
It gets worse. There's the life support system that they describe as very vague. It's said to be 96 hours of life support. So you only have enough oxygen for 96 hours.
For 5 people.
Yep,
at
exactly.
a certain weight, metabolism. Okay.
And something else that's alarming is that this submersible actually did go on quite a few dives, and pretty much every single time it would lose communication. It would always have communication issues with the boats up top.
Even previously.
On previous trips, and every single trip there was issues, and it was just ignored. And the problem is with each of these trips, there is, I believe, researchers are starting to get this assumption that with every one of the trips, it was starting to get a little bit weakened structurally. But here's the part.
The integrity of it was.
The integrity, right. But here's the part that I found most alarming with the design, or one of the most alarming parts of the design, is that the porthole window on the front. It is I read somewhere that it was registered for 1,300 meters depth, and they were diving down to 4,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're diving to a depth that's over double the approved limit.
It's 3 times, over 3 times. I mean, this is crazy. It could crack.
Yep.
The bolts around it holding it in can crack. The ring around it. I mean, that's just nuts. And let me guess, it was because he was trying to save money or whatever reason it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the reason was for the design, but now we're going to transition into a video, which, remember how I mentioned about the improvised nature of the submersible? This video, it covers that. And he actually is bragging to these reporters about some of the shortcuts that he took.
So, and we're going to look at this video in just a second, but just a quick pause. I'm really curious about this guy, the captain or inventor here, the CEO. He's an engineer, probably, an oceanographer of some type. I'm just curious about his background. I said I want to reserve judgment, but the more I hear about this, the more I'm thinking, what a knucklehead. Maybe it's not fair enough to say yet, but anytime again, you cut corners at the cost of safety, there's no reason to do that. There's no excuse. It's easy to jump forward and say, what an absolute knucklehead.
Yeah, there's zero excuse to put people's lives at risk.
So do we know what happens at the end? Are they still down there? Are we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to give that answer now, or I have a video pulled up that announces what happened?
I'll wait to see the video.
Okay. Yeah. So that would be a little bit forward, but here I'm just kind of showing you the before. The factors leading up to the tragedy.
The whole incident here.
The incident, yeah.
Okay, so our tragedy, you just said, so I think I just figured out what happened. So, what's crazy about this is every time you share something, you kind of say, but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
It gets worse and worse. Unfortunately, this is one of those stories, the more you learn, the worse it gets.
Well, and there's a history here.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the communication. The integrity of it started to deteriorate.
2018, that's 5 years ago. There's already safety lawsuits being raised and concerned.
So, I'm curious, who is this guy? Anyway, yeah, let's continue watching.
All right. So, what's also not a very great sign is that there's actually a waiver that you sign.
Oh, I'm sure.
To go onto it because it's not approved, it's not certified. So you have to sign a waiver, and I think
you waive all rights essentially.
Yeah, and I believe it was mentioned that the front page mentions death 3 times. That you have to sign.
The front page
to be a passenger, to pay to go on this can.
So I'm begging to give you $250,000 to enter in this uncomfortable and unsafe. I mean, as a tourist, I would assume it's safe. Okay, I'm going to assume it's safe. But so I look inside and it's horribly uncomfortable, and I'm paying you all this money, and yet on the waiver I'm seeing death on the first page 3 times.
Yeah. ready. And I don't think it gets fully read, but you get to hear
time to jump
part
ship
of it.
there. But yeah, okay.
Here we go.
But the star of the show is the Titan, Stockton Rush's custom-built submersible. 5-inch thick carbon fiber, capped on each end by a dome of titanium. If all went well, I myself would be spending about 12 hours sealed inside on a dive to the Titanic. Not gonna lie, I was a little nervous. An experimental submersible vessel that has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, disability, emotional trauma, or death. Where do I sign?
Oh, take your shoes off. That's customary.
Okay. Wow. Inside, the sub has about as much room as a minivan.
So this is not your grandfather's submersible. We only have one button. That's it. It should be like an elevator. You know, it shouldn't take a lot of skill.
The Titan is
That's another.
Why no skill? I mean, it should be highly technological.
Yeah, an elevator to the afterlife is more like it.
An elevator to the afterlife.
I would want to see like a whole control deck. Like I would want like hundreds of different keys.
A command
buttons,
center.
A command center. You want as many options, as many settings as possible to be in full control. You don't want to press a single button. There's so many things that can go wrong.
With full communication. Right? Because I think you mentioned that.
With full communication as well, yeah.
There was communication breakdown on the previous journeys.
Mm-hmm. Wow. But they would have issues maintaining contact with these boats above. And as you can see here, there's this platform. So they have the submersible on the platform. So they have actually to take it out to the ocean, then they drop it off.
I see. I like adventure, and I like doing some crazy stuff, but calculated crazy stuff.
Yeah.
If I were to walk into the showroom and see this, and see that it's controlled by a joystick or a game controller. And lacking a full control center of some type, I would think, again, this has got to be a prototype. This can't be the real thing. Mm-hmm. Being the real thing, I'd walk away and just say, this guy's nuts.
Mm-hmm. And there actually have been some prospective customers who went and looked at it and decided it wasn't safe enough to risk going on the trip. And those people, I'm sure, are very glad that they did not do
Absolutely.
that. Because their lives were saved by the fact that they did not decide to go on this trip.
And for the other 4 passengers on the ship, my comments, I don't mean to slight them in any way. And their judgment, not at all. You use the word tragedy, so I'm
it is
what happened. It's just absolutely horrible. But I guess you get some people that get really excited about something and are just very trusting.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is with these kind of high budget. I don't want to call it excursion, but let's just use that word for now.
Sure. With
high budget excursions that are in the millions of dollars, if not even higher, you would expect that all the safety checks, all the regulations have all gone through, and everything is perfectly safe. And at the same time, people are also blinded by that excitement to be able to go and be one of the few people in the world to go and see the Titanic. Yeah. And then there's also the sense of urgency, which is the Titanic is not going to be around forever. It's deteriorating. Right. So and those are all, by the way, that's also how scams work. This is not saying that this is a scam, but I'm just saying that sense of urgency is really a really powerful driving force to get people to do things they wouldn't normally do. Because oftentimes hackers, they'll send out these spoofed emails, and they'll make it seem urgent that you need to click on this link now. You're running out of time to reset your password. You're gonna lose access to your bank account. They try and make it seem urgent so that you don't think it through, and then you go into it.
Or if it's not fear in terms of something bad can happen, it's FOMO, fear of missing out on something good. Like you were saying, with
the
Titanic deteriorating.
Exactly, and I think the plan was they were only going to do like 5 trips with the Titan, which adds to that fear of missing out. Because if they're only going to do 5 trips, and I was one of the people who didn't decide to go on one of those trips,
I'll never have this
opportunity again. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's pretty alarming.
Let's continue.
The only 5-person sub in the world that can reach Titanic depths, 2.4 miles below the sea. It's also the only one with a toilet. Sort of. And yet, I couldn't help noticing how many pieces of this sub seemed improvised.
We can use these off-the-shelf components. I got these from Camper World. We run the whole thing with this game controller.
Come on! It seems like this submersible has some elements of MacGyver-y jerry-rigness. I mean, you're putting construction pipes as ballast.
I don't know if I'd use that description of it, but there's certain things that you want to be buttoned down. So the pressure vessel is not MacGyver at all, because that's where we work with Boeing and NASA and the University of Washington. Everything else can fail. Your thrusters can go, your lights can go, you're still going to be safe.
But when expedition manager Kyle Bingham studied the forecast for our Titanic dive, he concluded that the waves would be too big to launch the sub.
We're looking at 6 feet, and then it bumps up a little bit.
Our Titanic adventure would have to wait. But Stockton Rush offered our CBS crew a consolation dive to the continental shelf 80 miles away.
Yeah, so I think that kind of covers it for this, what I wanted to show for this video, unless you'd like to see more. What are your thoughts?
I keep thinking about how unsafe it is, and you saying tragedy, and I think some people who unfortunately, I don't want to say suckered in, but just were too trusting in what they were about to experience in this tin can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the guy is a maverick, throwing safety at the wind.
Yeah.
Got a real problem with that.
Well,
but I think on the other hand, though, to think about being a tourist, it would be exciting to go see the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing the movie, that one that came out in the late '90s, and they showed the submersible, right? And I've seen documentaries with a submersible, and I thought that'd be so cool to do that and go see the ruins of the Titanic. So,
well, keep in mind a lot of footage that is captured of the Titanic. It might not be operated by people. It could be remote controlled.
Mm-hmm. I've seen those actually. Those particular submersible cameras.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'd be really exciting. So if someone were to give me that opportunity, it'd be exciting. Let me find out more information. But again, I think after finding out more information, I'd just step back and say, that's probably not for me.
Right. Yeah.
I'm very confident about
I think
that.
it's very important to, whenever there's risk involved, to thoroughly research, and you don't want to be there's a whole study about confirmation bias. You don't so confirmation
all around it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So how confirmation bias works is
start and I'll preach it.
If someone wants to do something, they'll look for the first reason to do it. Okay. So they'll just take one. They'll ignore all the warning, like all the red flags, and they'll look for the first reason to do it. Oh, this guy says it'll go fine. Okay, I trust him. And then you want to be the opposite whenever there's.
He's an engineer. I'm not an engineer. He must know what he's talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With life-threatening situations where you're putting your life in someone else's hands, you want to be the opposite. You want to be looking for a reason not to go through with it, because you want to be absolutely sure that it is completely safe.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and like I said, risks are around us all the time. But when I go into a situation where I'm really assessing risk, I think of, what's the probability? That's my first question. What's the probability of it occurring? And then second question is, what's going to be the impact to me?
Right.
So, I think, I want to go for a drive and see the Grand Canyon someday. But it can be kind of scary, because I see all these, I've read a number of articles where people actually fall off and die.
Right.
And, that's terrifying. However, what's the probability of that happening to me? Very, very low. If it does happen, the impact's great, right? However, how do I mitigate that risk? Don't get too close to the edge.
Right.
So can I still go see the Grand Canyon? Yeah. Just go there with a better educated approach, I suppose. As one example. There's risks in everything.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what occurred was an implosion.
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt you here. So last I heard, this was lost at sea, and they were hearing dings from the ocean floor.
Right. It was later determined that every 30 minutes that thing was completely unrelated. Okay. And so what happened was later, the submersible, they discovered pieces of the submersible on the ocean floor, which should indicate that it is obviously no longer intact, and it was determined to be an implosion. What's interesting is actually the Coastal Guard did pick up a sonic ping of the implosion happening from day one of the occurrence, but they didn't say anything. And so the public was led to believe with the media that there is still a chance of them being saved, and that they're currently running out of time. And so there's news agencies that had like a clock, like a timer showing how many hours of air they have left that were constantly rolling, and including in the family as well was kind of strung along. And I believe the reasoning that was provided for why the Coastal Guard didn't come out and say anything from day one is because they didn't have any proof. So they wanted to send down basically send down these like remote controlled cameras, and to see if they can find pieces of it to first confirm.
Sure.
And of course they found it.
So let's see if I do the math. 96 hours, 4 days, right? Yeah. So they had 4 days of oxygen, and so you answered the question I was going to ask, and that is on the very first day. Then they took the dive, and it imploded. Right. Day one. Okay, so they didn't...
In the first few hours. Wow. They didn't even go all the way down.
Oh, they didn't?
Yeah.
They didn't even see the Titanic.
Yeah, the contact was lost. Yeah, it happened very fast.
Okay.
So, yeah. For the victims, these are the 5 passengers. Of course, there's the CEO. There's a Titanic expert. There's the British explorer. And then there's a millionaire and his, I think, 19-year-old son. Who went on, so he took his son on board, and what adds another layer of depth to the story is that the son didn't want to go. He was like terrified, like definitely afraid of going on the trip, and the only reason he did was to make his dad happy for Father's Day.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And they're probably the 2 French citizens. I'm assuming that's why the U.S. Coast Guard is in close touch with the British and the French, even though they're Pakistani. I'm guessing, but
yeah. See here, 19-year-old Titan passenger was terrified before trip. His aunt says, so.
Wow, that's sad, and that is tragic. What an absolute tragedy here.
Yeah. See, there's a picture of the father and son.
Yeah.
This is the father. And he was, quote unquote, absolutely obsessed with the Titanic from a young age. And so basically it was like the father's
his obsession.
Right.
Yeah, that's really too bad.
Yeah, and that really speaks to the danger of peer pressure. If I saw this one YouTuber who also he covered this event, and he had some really interesting things to say. He mentioned about the power of going with your gut, and to you it's a skill that you need to develop, or it at the very least it'd be very beneficial to your life if you develop it. That you need to, if you feel something isn't right, don't go through with it. And in general, there's the law of attraction, which is the things that you constantly think about tend to manifest. So if you constantly are in this negative mindset, thinking about all your financial woes, you'll probably stay there. Versus if you have like a more open mindset, you're going to be like, I'm going to be successful. Then you're more likely to manifest that. He actually mentioned something that's very interesting, which is there was this one famous individual who his best friend died in a plane crash. And what happened was he was definitely afraid of going on planes.
Sure.
And he decided that he was not going to go on any planes unless absolutely necessary. So he limited the use of planes as much as possible. And then can you guess how he passed away?
Probably in a plane crash.
Right. So unfortunately, in this case, he's only 19 years old. He probably felt obligated, especially on Father's Day. There's like guilt involved So he decided to do it for his dad, even though he really didn't want to.
And probably grew up hearing about his dad's obsession with the Titanic.
Of course, they
probably had the movie half memorized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
most recent movie.
Exactly. Yeah, and so that makes it even more tragic, is because he didn't want to go on there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I really appreciate you saying something about. Are you alluding to? You mentioned the other YouTuber, but the gut. It's so important. Sometimes we feel certain things and we think certain things, and sometimes that gut sort of picks up what we can't articulate with what we feel and what we're thinking. But the gut's saying, "Wait a minute, listen to me," and it's a whole nother feeling. And I agree with that. Mm-hmm. That feeling of your gut saying, this isn't right. Something's off here. Something isn't quite. Something's awry. And I think the gut will speak very loudly if we begin to trust ourselves a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like for example, for me, like my gut is pretty confident on never exploring the depths of the ocean. There's no amount of money, there's no amount of safety that I can be guaranteed to feel comfortable to go down there. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's not my domain, not my territory. I prefer to be on land where I feel safe, in the comfort of my own home. And there's others who also decided, I'm glad, who they went with their gut and decided not to go on.
No way.
Because those people could have also been victims.
Sure. I think I saw somewhere in a quote here that someone said, you could now have paid me $1 million to go on this adventure excursion. So some people felt real strongly about it. And I could see where, for me, if someone were to be telling me about this, I would trust he's an oceanographer, he's an engineer, he knows what he's talking about. I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. However, if there are questions that they can't answer that I have, and I may not even have the right questions to ask, but again, going back to the gut, I may think, this person's an expert, and it looks like they have a great piece of machinery. But my gut's saying, you know what? You just don't know enough information to feel right about it.
Yeah.
That's where I have to step back.
And to me, what I found really shocking about this incident is the lack of screening from those who decide to go on the vessel, because in my opinion, there's two huge factors involved. One, it's a huge financial cost. It's not like some measly like $20 expense on Amazon. This is $250,000, $250,000. If you were, I'm sure that anyone who's watching this, if you were given that amount of money and you were supposed to make an investment, whatever investment you're going to make with that money, you would have very carefully thought about. Not to mention the other very big factor, which is your life at risk. The amount of pressure down there at that depth is insane, and the fact that almost no one in the world has gone down and seen the Titanic, it speaks to this day, speaks to the amount of danger involved, to the amount of difficulty. So with those two things, I would think that you would want to look up every single detail possible about this incident. And these people, a lot of them, if they're able to afford that type of ticket, I'm sure they could have afforded to at least have someone look into it for them if they didn't want to do it themselves. I would think that just seeing that one clip of the founder, giggling about getting this from
a camping store,
from some camping store, and then like saying, and then taking the controller and chucking it to the side. Look, even a 16-year-old can throw it. I would think that would already seem like such a lack of professionalism and of like quality put into the product itself that I would pull out immediately.
Absolutely, yeah. And on that note, with technology, if you're going to just toss them in control, I would imagine if it's going to be really technologically sound, it's going to be treated with great care and some sense of sensitivity and respect. And he did. He literally just tossed it.
He said we have several more on board.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like I said, the more you look into the story, the worse it gets. Because I have another video for you.
Oh, there's more.
There's more.
Oh boy. Okay.
So this video is Titanic tour CEO didn't hire 50-year-old white guys because they weren't inspirational. Ready for this one?
Okay.
Ready for this dumpster fire?
Why the mention of white guys?
Ready?
Yeah.
There we go.
When I started the business, one of the things you'll find, there are other sub-operators out there, but they typically have gentlemen who are ex-military submariners, and you'll see a whole bunch of 50-year-old white guys. I wanted our team to be younger, to be inspirational, and I'm not going to inspire a 16-year-old to go pursue marine technology.
They probably question him less.
Right.
And certainly didn't have the knowledge.
And we can train people to do that. We can train someone to pilot the sub. We use a game controller, so anybody can drive the sub.
Well, that's another element red flag, and like you said, I have a similar suspicion that he intentionally didn't hire these quote unquote 50-year-old white guys who have been in the field for a while and have a level of expertise in this domain, because his design is so questionable that probably most of them, if not all, would have completely not allowed it to go forward. And so what he did instead was he went and he hired a bunch of young maybe 20-something-year-olds fresh out of university or college who only have some theory involved and don't have that hands-on experience, and then proceeded to virtue signal to everyone, saying that, oh, look how progressive I am. I'm doing this that no one else.
And you're a part of it.
And you're a part of it. Yeah. Even though in reality he probably did, like you said, to maybe be able to get away with moving forward with this operation, right?
Well, for sure. Yeah, they're not going to question him. They're probably inspired by him. In many ways, I'm sure he was charismatic, and he probably sincerely believed he was being innovative, and have that type of energy. I'm sure younger people thought, I want to be like you, and probably did not know enough to question him, and certainly may have even been afraid, if I question him, I'm going to lose my job.
Right. Yeah.
So, whereas older people with more experience know, well, I can get a job at the next shop around the corner.
Yeah, the more experience you accumulate, the more grounded you feel, the more confident, and the less you just go with what you're told. That when you develop that domain of expertise, you let it speak for itself. So there's one more video I have dug up.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah. Final video.
Okay.
This is the one regarding the certification that was declined for Oceangate. Oceangate is the company that made the Titan, which the founder is, of course, Stockton. So, ready?
Okay.
For us in Boston. So, Jason, what does it mean that the Coast Guard is going to lead now?
Right, and just to point out, Allison, as you know, not just the U.S. Coast Guard, but in addition to that, we've also gotten word today that the National Transportation Safety Board is also going to be a part of this investigation. And in addition to that, you've got the Canadian Transportation Board involved as well. What's going to be key to the investigation, though, forensic evidence, right? You've got to get as much as you can, gather as many pieces as you can of the Titan as possible. That's why it's so important for those remotely operated vehicles to continue work on the ocean floor. So while you've heard word about vessels pulling out of the area, and indeed that is happening in the North Atlantic, those ROVs, those remotely operated vehicles, are staying there. They're continuing to scour the debris area, trying to get as much evidence as possible. Because
wow, think of the cost of this, too.
Experts are going to have to do is they're going to have to get pieces of that hull, and they're going to have to try to do some testing on that to try to come to some conclusion about the integrity of the hull. This, as we've heard from so many people over the last 24 to 48 hours, who say that they raised issues with Oceangate about its safety protocols and about the integrity of the Titan.
But Jason, what about this marine certification company that rejected a request to certify the Titan?
Right. Lloyd's Registrar, and that is the company that typically does this type of marine vessel registration. According to what we've heard here at CNN, there was a request from Oceangate to have Titan certified. This was back in 2019, and this company denied the request to do that. Did not want to work with them. The company did not provide a reason as to why that happened. But what's interesting about that, you'll remember that Oceangate on its website had said that they had decided to forego getting registered, saying that it was standing in the way of innovation. That was something that was up on their website. That website has now been taken down.
Sure, it's
Allison.
crazy.
Okay,
Implicate
still a
them
lot of
further.
questions. Jason Carroll, thank you very much. Let's bring in David Wad. He was a passenger on the Titan sub in 2020.
Yeah, but that's pretty crazy, isn't it?
That's absolutely crazy. It's nuts. Nuts.
It's what I told you earlier. They made this statement that they decided to just forego the certification, when in reality they had been denied the certification, and then they put out this statement to make it seem like it was their decision, not
Their decision, and for a good reason. Right? We all want to be innovative, right?
Right.
So our decision, so that our innovation is not squelched in any manner. And people look at that and applaud it. Yeah, we support innovation. We support entrepreneurialism. We support the ability to be inventive, creative. Those are all quality things. But there was really just a ruse, a guise for this tragedy, which was it was going to happen. And unfortunately, it did.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous. And then later they took it down off the website.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, it sure is. I think she said the whole website was taken down now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the main part of that video I wanted to show. So I think we can stop there. There was one other interesting thing. I don't know if it's real or not. I haven't verified it, so I can't speak to it. But I saw that there was a posting put out for a operator for the submersible, like a job listing, right after this happened. So it's like even the CEO himself, who was operating the submersible, passed away, and now they're already looking for a replacement.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Company's already folded. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if, like I said, I haven't had the chance to check and confirm whether or not that is true. You guys let us know in the comments below if it is. These are the videos and articles that I managed to dig up just related to this incident. I'm sure there's plenty of other resources, and make sure you guys let us know in the comments below if there's anything else related to this incident that you think should be covered. Like I said, unfortunately, this was a very tragic loss. Make sure that in the future you always are careful with whatever decisions you make, because it could end up costing you your life.
Right. Take on risks. We all have risks that we come face to face with, but always consider the calculated risks. What's the probability and what's the impact to me? And certainly to have fun with a high risk of probability of a negative impact, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments just your general thoughts. I'm just kind of really curious in this community what you're thinking, and there are different angles to think about. The people, what they part of my thought is, what were they thinking and certainly feeling when they realized this wasn't going to there was no way to return to the surface. Of course, fear is what they're feeling, but just a lot of things. What's going through their head when they realize this is it? And then, of course, at the time of implosion, I'm sure that was very rapid. Once at that pressure, I imagine, from what I know, if there's a crack or some small leak, it happens very quickly.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I believe it's speculated that it was instantaneous. That was like the only comfort in the whole thing, was that it was so fast. They were probably just going down, and then all of a sudden it imploded.
So they probably didn't realize or have a thought to think of what was going on.
Exactly. It would have been so fast that their nervous systems wouldn't even been able to register the pain.
Yeah, that is comforting. No suffering there. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Let us know what you think. Sky's the limit. I mean, really, this is an interesting topic here. What are your thoughts on what occurred, what happened?
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, it was pointed out there is a bit of irony in the name Titan because it suffered the same fate as the Titanic, in which the passengers met a grisly fate. So in general, this was a very tragic event, and unfortunately now those people are dead as a result of pure negligence in terms of design, in terms of just operating and procedures. And so hopefully in the future there's more restrictions set in place to disallow this sort of thing from happening. I'm surprised that they were even allowed to be able to have an operating sub with paying passengers without being certified. I don't feel like that should be allowed anywhere.
Agreed. Yeah, I was surprised to find that out in this story.
Yeah.
Well, as always, Serge has he's very creative and innovative in a lot of different themes and ideas and subjects with our channel here, and this is another one as we just react to something that was really a current event. So thank you. You're always thinking of something that's interesting and surprises me from time to time, but it's always like a pleasant surprise, like, oh my gosh, what gave you that thought? Again, so this I'm glad you selected this because I learned a lot here, and I think what I'll be doing is just will listen in my head over and over about the whole situation, and I'd imagine why it became a popular news story. Because one, it had related to the Titanic itself,
which has always been a cultural icon in a sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And the other part is you just think, what would I do in that situation? Or from the beginning, would I even board the submersible or not?
And why would someone choose to do that? In general, like I said, I think it's very important to cover these types of events because just like they say, if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. Current events are a form of history. They are what's going on around us right now, and I think it's important to have plenty of awareness around these events. And let us know if you'd like to see more of this type of content, if you'd like to see us cover different events. In general, if you like us to maybe do a different form, like long form, short form. I know this video is very long, but I wanted us to have like a full, pretty broad overview of what happened. But in general, let us know what you guys think. We are more than happy to cover these types of events. Me and Rob talk about these anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, and maybe before you know it, you might find us covering something on site.
Oh.
I'm going to get him out of the studio.
Are we going to be news reporters?
We'll see.
All right. Well, we... enjoy isn't the right word here, so we can't say we hope you guys enjoyed. Unfortunately, this was a very tragic loss. We hope you found this informative. Maybe you learned something new about this tragedy that you didn't know before. Also, feel free to and basically expand the context behind what happened. If you know any additional facts that have been revealed regarding this, any articles or videos, feel free to put in the comment section below. We'd be more than happy to learn more about the event. And if there's something that is especially important, maybe we'll make a follow-up video to discuss some more. So with that being said, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell icon to stay up to date on future content. And take care.
You'll see you soon.
All right, guys. See ya.